Good morning. I want to thank first the New Thought Spiritual Center for helping me stay on focus. I received about a month ago an email from them about next year's speaking times, and I thought, I'm not sure I'm ready to speak. Just to catch some of you up, I have gone through the hardest period of my life, the last 8 months. 6 of those months, I was the primary caregiver of my mother, who was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer in February, and she transitioned back to Source August 19th at about 8:07 at night. Not that I think about that at all. Anyway, that period has, my brother said something when my mother transitioned. He said after we processed some, because it's a continual process, he said, the force has been disturbed. And I am finding that to be so true right now in my life. I feel like almost like I don't have any gravity. And so I come from the same school that most of you come from, which is the school of perfectionism. Anybody here not go to that school? And so I was thinking, well, maybe I need a year before I come back and speak, where I really process, and then it's a rich stew that I can bring back to you. And then I get a letter saying, we can't wait to hear you speak in 2 weeks. And I thought, God has such a sense of humor, right? That what I really want to be, and what I'm really grateful for of all my years that I've been on this path as a seeker, is that I want to be genuine. And so today, I hope in my genuineness around the topic of gratitude, that someone can receive something from it. And how I want to break that perfectionism is to tell you, I loved what you said, Dottie, but there's one thing that I don't agree with, and that is that I can be sad and still be in service. Because I am sad, and I'm up here in service to you. And it's okay, because in our culture, I think one of the reasons why it looks the way it does is because we don't know how to be genuine. And in my genuineness is where, right now in my genuineness is where I need to speak about gratitude in a way that it's not from the mountain peak, like life is great, I'm whistling down the road, hee-haw, let's go dancing. But gratitude from when it's so hard to find and practice it, because that's what I'm struggling right now in my life, and yet I'm doing it. You know how God works in our lives? This community knows that. I was given a book after my mother transitioned. About a week later, someone in my community sent me a book. The book is The Book of Awakening. And it is a beautiful book. The book was written by a man who's a survivor of cancer. He's a poet, and he is just one of us. He speaks universal principles, and he is genuine. And I picked up the book a week ago when I was kind of settling down with how I wanted to present to you. And I opened up to this one page, and I'm going to start my talk from this page, because I believe in everything that we do is the art of unlearning. Right? I was talking to, I think it was you, Fred, or someone about, or maybe it was Michael, about children know gratitude. They live it until they're taught separation. My son is gratitude 24/7. Unless I get in the way of something, either with my ego or without, that he wants to have. But he lives gratitude so much better than I do. So I'd like you to breathe in this message, because this is really helpful for me. The unlearning back to God. To coming to consciousness is not a discovery of something new. It is a long and painful journey back to which has always been. So my gratitude and my connection with Source is here. It's just that I know, like all of you know, that the greatest separation from Source is always one thing, and it's called attachments, right? Attachments to fear, attachments to worry, attachments to people, places, and things. And I do have an attachment to my mother, right? I want that physicalness of what I've experienced with her. So that's why right now my separation feels bigger, because my attachment is bigger. Each person is born with an encumbered spot free of expectation and regret, free of ambition and embarrassment, free of fear and worry, an umbilical spot of grace. I love that line. And it feels appropriate because my mother was my umbilical cord. She was my life force. To know this spot is of inwardness. It's of genuineness. It is to know who we are, not by the surface markers of our identity, not by the work that we do, not what we wear, not what we like to be addressed, but by the feeling in our relationship to the infinite, by inhibiting it. This is a hard, lifelong task, for the nature of becoming is a constant filming over of where we've been. So my intention today is just share a little bit of what I think gratitude is, the benefits of it, and how to do it. Sound like a good idea? Yeah. Okay. So gratitude is an emotion. And like all the emotions that we have, it's in us. But unless we stimulate it, just like an instrument, I could have a guitar, I could have the most beautiful instrument, but till I pick that instrument up and play it, does it not have the residual beautiful sound that it's meant to have? And that is true of every emotion that we have. From the greatest despair to the greatest joy. And gratitude is that emotion that you can say you're grateful, but until you actually stimulate it, like Dottie did so perfectly today, I love that she said it spontaneously. Did you not feel the energy in her thankfulness? It wasn't just words she was repeating. Gratitude is tricky like all the other emotions, in that the greatest separation from source, right? We know when I'm fully in my source connection, I don't have to practice gratitude. It's natural, right? But the greater my separation between who I am, that umbilical spot of grace within me, the harder it is to practice these principles in all our affairs, right? So what we have to do is we have to learn how to be where we are in order to have the appropriate practice for gratitude. Because gratitude helps everything, always, everywhere, to anyone. There are no exclusions, no matter where you are. This morning I was playing with Facebook, reading some spiritual quotes, and there was this story about this taxi driver got a call to pick up a woman, and he drove to her house in New York City, and she came out with her little suitcase, and she got it was like early in the morning. She got in the taxi, and he said, "Where are you going?" She said, "I'm going to hospice." And the guy immediately looked in his rearview mirror at this woman. There's a moment of gratitude right there. There's a moment of grace. He saw her. And he said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I'm dying and I have no family." So she said, "But I want you to take a really long ride there." He shut off the meter and he drove around Manhattan for 2.5 hours. And in that 2.5 hours, she spoke to him and told her her stories. That's gratitude in action. When he dropped her off at hospice, the aides came out and greeted her, and he got out of the car, which he had never done before with someone he drove, and they embraced. That's grace and gratitude in action. The benefits of gratitude are unbelievable, right? I love the benefits. That's why I'm practicing it, and I continue to practice it, and I have been practicing it for years and years and years. Not only have I seen it change the physiology and psychology of my own being, if you only knew what I was like before, okay? And I see it in the people I work with, right? It's funny, I'll tell you a quick funny story. I am living with my father. My parents were really old-fashioned Italians. You know, my father, after my mother was dead a week, he said to me, I have no undershirts. And I'm thinking, is there some kind of cryptic message he's telling me about that? I said, so? He said, well, I need you to wash them. And I said, okay. My mother did everything for him, right? So my father has begun dating. When I first found out, I was devastated because important practice of gratitude, one of the most important, mind your own freaking business. Okay? I wasn't. I was really pissed. How dare you, blah, 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 blah. Who the hell knows what their 60 years of marriage was about? And let me tell you, I've been around them a long time. They weren't strolling down the street hugging and kissing for most of it. So last night, my father goes on a date. Now, I'm a recovering alcoholic, everyone. I tortured my parents when I was younger. I would steal cars. I climbed out of windows. I was arrested. I mean, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things I gave them. So last night, my father goes out with this woman. I see him drive with her. He brings her over, and then they leave at 5:15 in the evening. They're in their 80s, okay? 12 o'clock at night. He's still not back. I'm laying in bed, and I am feeling what we call karma, right? I'm thinking, this is what I did to my poor parents. I get up, I walk around the neighborhood, because now I'm up. I get back in the house, and I sit down, and I shift my karma, which is a practice of gratitude, to my dharma. Right? Karma is cause and effect. Trust me, I know I got more coming. Once my son is 16, I'm going to have to be bolted down. Okay? Dharma is, how do I take my karma, look at what I'm accountable for, I create everything, and how can I let it walk me on the path to my rightful purpose? And again, I come to, is it any of my business what my father's doing? Right? Is it any of my business? Whose business is it but my own? Take care of your own. Gratitude. That's gratitude in action. Okay? Benefits of gratitude. The physiology of your body will change if you practice gratitude. It makes you a more kind, loving human being. It connects you with the world. You have a desire to move your body where you didn't before. And I could go on and on, but my favorite is the natural benefit of gratitude is generosity. We become generous. He's still out. No. My father's living his adolescence at 82 years old. And you know what? The poor man is he's a recovering Catholic, okay? First night he went on a date. He came over, he felt so guilty. And thank God I was already past feeling mad at him. And I said, what are you guilty for? He said, well, we kissed and we embraced. And I said, Daddy, you're 82 years old. I really don't think Jesus is up there mad at you about that, you know? So it makes us generous. How do we practice gratitude? In all our affairs, as often as we can, wherever we are, because it helps everything, everywhere, always. The worse you feel, the easier and more simple you make your gratitude. Example, like in the last couple of weeks, I've been having huge anxiety attacks. My nervous system is on overload for spending 6 months in the trenches of cancer. My mother battled cancer, and it killed her in a horrible way. In fact, her medical doctor said to me this week when I went finally for help with my anxiety, he said, in all my years of practicing medicine, and he was in the trenches with us, he's a really good doctor. He said, I've never seen anyone suffer like your mother did. And it validated what I saw daily. And so when I have a day that my heart's not racing, I milk it. I milk it. When I have a day that my heart's not beating out of my chest right now, I milk it. The other day, after 3 days of having horrible anxiety, I was sitting outside feeling a little better, and I noticed the color of light on a leaf on a tree. Fall is beautiful, the colors, but I have to say I haven't been feeling it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the beauty of nature. That's gratitude, finding those small little things. So the worse you feel, make it simple. Make it simple. Find the things. I am grateful I have shoes on my feet, right? I am grateful that I have clothes on my back. Simple. The better your life is, you got a lot of things good, things are going well, there's always that risk there that the ego comes in, right? That says, I want more. If I got this, more might be better. We live in a culture of more. More, 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 more. Bigger, 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 bigger. The practice when you're feeling good is practice humility and service. Right? This summer, I spent a lot of time in service with my mother, bringing her to oncology offices and doctor's appointment. I would sit for 3.5 hours while she was getting her chemo in a room with some of the most courageous people I've ever met in my life. Not only the people that were battling their cancer, but the people in service of that. And I would sit in there and just, rather than seeing it as, because it's all your perspective, rather than seeing it as, oh my God, these poor people suffering, I would sit there and feel so grateful that I have the ability to sit with the courageous, to serve the courageous, and to be healthy. To be healthy. My health is so important to me. There are ways of practicing gratitude every day, and I suggest to all of you, find your rituals. In my family, we sit down before we eat dinner, and we first call in God in the way whoever's doing it, like we did in the back of the room. They called me in. One of us in my family gets to call in God, because we all have different words for God in my family and ways of getting there. And then we say one thing that we're grateful for that day. We don't stop there, though. We go around the room, and everyone says one thing that they appreciate about everyone in the room. And themselves. Hardest one is themselves. Right? My son has this friend, her name is Lacey. She lived behind us in Hampton Bays, and she comes from a family that she could spend days at my house and no one even checks on her. She loves being at our house. She gets fed, she gets seen. At dinner, her favorite part was that. She loved that part of it, right? So generosity of spirit, the more we give, the more we share. Find a day that you go out and tell someone how grateful for you are. Take them out to lunch. Have a gratitude day. This past summer, because of my mother being so sick, I had to call on my community, my yoga community, because last minute I was running here and running there. And my teachers, the teachers that work for me and support Ananda, showed up so beautifully for me. No one asked me a question. They were there. And there wasn't even a little blip in my business. And at the end of the summer, I said, I want to have a gratitude luncheon for you, but I'm not feeling very strong. And one of them said, we'll have it at my house. And someone else said, I'll get the food. So here I am wanting to appreciate them, but I was being genuine, right? Because it wasn't so much about where we were doing it or how we were doing it, but I wanted them to know how absolutely grateful I was for the community that supported me and my family through one of the hardest times in our lives. Find ways that work for you to practice gratitude, and know that even when you're in a really hard time, the simplest things go really far. I want to read 2 things before I end. For the practice of gratitude turns what we have into enough. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. It makes peace with our past and creates a vision for hope for our future. You know how every once in a while you do something and that little voice inside you says, there, that's it. That's why you're here. And you get that warm glow in your heart because you know it's true. Do more of that. Namaste.